So the Pima County Sheriff's Department started this investigation and then the FBI got involved. So who's in charge at that point?
So they've been really making pains to say that there's no one lead agency. Realistically, you do need one person in charge. It looks to me like, for the most part, the sheriff is running things here on the ground and the FBI is enhancing. That's the legal term, the law enforcement term, I should say.
There seems to be a disagreement when it comes to collecting and analyzing this evidence. Why would both departments be at odds?
Quantico is not a charm school, but neither are most police academies. So there can be some sharp elbows. I hope that they're rising above that for the common interest of trying to find Nancy and end this thing. I think the only place it really could matter is the glove that we've heard so much about. Right. Because, look, if there was a glove that was there that wouldn't match to Nancy and it's a single glove, just logic tells you a single glove, not part of a pair, which is what you would normally find in a house, the size that would fit a man, maybe leather. We're in an area, essentially it's the desert. You're not gonna have big, heavy gloves regularly. That is a pretty key piece of evidence. You have to say to yourself, it very likely tracks to the crime if what I just described is true. You wanna go the shortest distance, I should say, between 2 points, which is get it to the Quantico lab, because the FBI can immediately ping it against their databases and do all kinds of other stuff that now they're gonna have to do if and when they get the glove as a repeat.
So do you think the fact that the sheriff decided to send evidence and DNA to the lab in Florida versus Quantico, was that a misstep?
You know, I think it would have been better in retrospect likely to do that, but at that time he might not have thought that he was going to need the resources of the federal government. He might not have realized how difficult this thing was going to be. And apparently that's their normal routine here because they use that lab. So by the time the FBI came in, you got to assume they found the glove the first day. And he might have followed their normal protocol, which is we use this lab in Florida. I think I know what the lab is. They're a good lab. They're very professional. They can do high-level DNA research. So he just followed their normal procedure. But in retrospect, it might have been better to get it right to the FBI, and it just might have been quicker.
The gloves were found out in the elements, you know, out in this desert. Does that make it difficult to collect any DNA?
Right, so that's the other gloves that they found during the searches. And yeah, I mean, those gloves could have been there for a very long time. Look, there's a lot of transient people here. There are some homeless encampments. There's a lot of landscapers and things like that. Those gloves could have come from anywhere. And the truth of the matter is, even an investigator could have dropped those gloves out in the desert as they were doing the search. You have to look for Nancy's DNA, maybe on the outside. A potential perps on the inside of the gloves would be the best shot you got. But I think the real note of investigation relative to gloves here is the glove that was found inside the house, because from the sounds of it, if it's a leather glove of a man's size, it shouldn't be there. And you have to say to yourself as well, look, they didn't get a one-to-one match right away. We know already. Here's the thing with that, though. If the DNA was good enough to really examine, even without a one-to-one check that hits, even without something like, okay, we got somebody who's 3 off as a family member and we're going to investigate that line, good DNA can tell you things like ethnicity, eye color, things like that. And they're putting out information now. We got the height, right? So that tells me they're in the business right now of trying to bring the public into this thing a little bit to get help. They're asking for the Ring cameras in the neighborhood, et cetera, going back to January 1. So if they had more information like that, saying something like it comes back to a European male, eye color is green, I think they'd put it out. So that tells me that maybe the DNA sample wasn't everything you'd hope it could be.
We saw investigators carrying a height chart. So how will that be used to analyze a possible suspect?
Right, so generally with this kind of a thing, they use like a ratio, and that's kind of the old way, and it's pretty good. You get within a couple of inches. What they apparently did yesterday, that's my read of why they put that tent up, is because the glare down here, not today, but the glare is, you know, we're in the desert, the sun is very, very strong. They put the tent up to block the sun, and then they use really sensitive photographic equipment involving lasers and all kinds of stuff to really try to pin down an exact height. I think they reportedly were doing some other things, maybe with the blood droplets relative to photographing them. They didn't want that sun, that solar interference, but they were able to come out very definitively and give us 5'9", 5'10". I know that's a range, but you know what? It still will enable you, if you get a series of suspects, to say, well, this guy's 5'6", forget him. So it's not a small thing.
Besides the height, though, the FBI did release some other identifying details of the suspect from that doorbell camera, including the type of backpack that the suspect was wearing. How difficult will it be to look at everyone seen in public who has that backpack? It seems like a common brand.
So here are the metrics on that. Apparently, it's exclusively a Walmart brand, right? So that narrows it down to Walmart. And there's a humongous Walmart here. It's like the size of a city block. All right, so if it is a relatively new backpack, you got 2 shots here. If you bought it with a credit card, you just investigate everybody who bought that. You go through it. It's a lot of work, but that's police work, and you're going to look at that. All right, and obviously you're going to start with the one that's here in town. The other thing is this. If he paid cash, now you're going to be down to the videos that are in the Walmarts. The Walmarts don't have, according to my sourcing, a uniform protocol for how long the video is retained because it overwrites. So, because it's digital, it's not actually film. So, my understanding is that it varies, a couple of months, could be up to 120 days, depending. If it is new, and he bought it relatively recently, and he bought it in a nearby Walmart, there's a good chance that you could get video of what this person looks like. And that's why things like height start to matter. Because if you see people buying that thing, and it's a woman who is 5'2", then that's out. So, you could be, of course, they could have an accomplice, everything else. You have to admit that possibility. But I think the purchase history on the backpack, relative to also things like the sweatshirt, the shoes, because I think they're going to identify the sweatshirt as well if they haven't already. And sort of synchronizing all of these data points can get you, hopefully, to a narrower pool. And then you add things like the height. And then hopefully if we, hear later that they did have something from the DNA, you can really start to zero in on some people.
Is it unusual for the FBI to be involved, and is it because the person that this involves is the mother of Savannah Guthrie?
Well, look, you can request the FBI in on any sort of, any case really, but certainly a kidnapping where it looks like an older woman is in danger because they have so much technical abilities that small departments don't necessarily have. This is a 500-person department in terms of the gun carriers, the sworn law enforcement, and more than half of them are in corrections. So you have a relatively small department, a relatively small budget, and that's not any shade on them, it's the size of the place. And so you go to the FBI for the technical help. You can invite them in, you can talk. That's why it's very, very important for the chiefs in small departments to cultivate a relationship with the local FBI representative, which is, again, one of the things that the chief was making pains to say at the press conference, saying, we know each other, we work together all the time, etc. And the chief said that the FBI offered themselves, that he didn't have to call them, that they offered to come in. This is very, very common, and it is not unusual for the FBI to come into a local investigation. In my experience, if you run up against the wall in an investigation and you go to the FBI and say, look, we need a hand here. I need I need some information from another country, the kind of global reach that the FBI has, they come through for you. There's
certainly a lot of public attention on this because of Savannah Guthrie too, but the optics alone, I feel like a lot of people think this investigation is coming off a little messy.
There are a lot of agencies involved, not only the FBI and the Sheriff's Office. You have CBP here. You have their BORTAC unit, which is their sort of SWAT team. They know how to track people in the desert, so they're out there doing that. They were here earlier in the investigation with the dogs. You have, actually, believe it or not, a lot of the area around here is Native American reservation land. And so my understanding is that there are authorities from that area actually who are involved here. They know how to track as well. They know this terrain better than anybody. And you have all the technical, there's contractors that do the technical work and stuff. So there are a lot of people here. And that's why I said earlier, sometimes it is really better to acknowledge one person is in charge, they're directing things. But how it actually goes on the ground, sometimes it's not perfect that way. I think that some of the optics of it not being perfectly synchronized early on, I think that's a fair read. By now, we're 2 weeks into it. Usually by now, they have flushed out a lot of the bad blood and the thing works how it's supposed to.
The FBI is also offering now $100,000 for any information. Why is doubling the reward important here?
Nancy is in really dire danger here. Raising the reward could absolutely flip this thing, because the bottom line is if there's more than one person involved, that means there's a lot of people involved, because people talk, we all know that. One person can keep a secret, two cannot. And so that's the hope with a reward like this.
At what point does this go from a rescue mission to a recovery mission?
Yeah, you know, that's a really difficult thing to say. Look, you got to proceed on the idea that she's alive. I know there's this issue that she needed her medicine. Taking that into account, you got to remember that if this is in fact a ransom situation that we haven't heard from the ransomers yet, she is worth a lot more alive. And so you just hope that she's still out there and they're going to look to bargain at some point. You have to proceed on that because then realistically, the investigations won't look very different as it transitions.
Do you think Nancy is still alive?
I mean, I got to hope on that. What is even the point of making the distinction? Because as I said, the investigation is going to be pretty similar no matter what. And so why go down that road and why do something that can only add to the pain of the Guthrie family?